All right, good morning. How's everyone doing? Awesome, so excited to be here. So we won't spend too much time on the bio because I could use the entire 45 minutes and that won't help us get to the Q&A, which will be the most fun. I'm hoping that we are really interactive and we're having a conversation with Hazel. So I'll get a few questions started, but I really want to open it up to all of you and feel free to ask anything of either of us. But just to get the story started of Hazel Mccallion, she was born in Port Daniel, which in the Gaspé. So for those Americans who are geographically challenged, which I know I am, of US states, we are due north, she was due north of the far east coast in the US. And she is a Depression baby, born in 1921, so 98 years old, which is really, really remarkable. And a little known fact is that there was a 3-team women's professional hockey league in the 1940s. So Canadians, you know, we love our hockey. And Hazel played professional hockey, which is really, really remarkable. And she got $5 for every game that she played, which I think part of it is like some of her strength is she attributes to playing hockey as a young woman. So I'm gonna split her life up into sort of 3 acts. And Act 1 was her private sector business experience. She worked for the Canadian Kellogg Company. This company, it's not Kellogg's, it was a company that did a lot of work during the war. They produced chemicals and built huge plants in various places. And she was office manager, a number of other things, also got married in there somewhere and had 2 sons and a daughter and stayed in that private sector for about 30 years. Act 2. Act 2, Hazel became the mayor of a city called Mississauga, and this is some of the buildings behind me. And Mississauga is beside Toronto, so most people would say it's a suburb, but Hazel couldn't stand that idea. And she wanted the city to be a place where people could both work and live and play. She attracted hundreds and hundreds of corporations to set up their head offices in Mississauga. She tripled the size of it. She worked really, really hard to make sure that it was profitable and economically sound. And the other thing that really, I think, differentiated her is people loved her. She has this great story of she was driving down the street one day and there's a bus driver and he rolled down the window and said, "Hazel, we miss you." And I thought, you know, if the bus drivers still love you, that's a pretty good sign. So she was a mayor for about 40 years, and during that time has made huge political connections throughout Canada. So she's very well known. She knows our Prime Minister personally. She's been on vacation with him. She knows most of the premiers, so she's very politically connected, which is also helpful in our business. And then Act 3, which is her stint with Revera. And I was at an Aging 2.0 conference in 2015, and there was an older woman who had applied and sent a letter to the CEO of IDEO, which is a big design powerhouse, and said, "Hey, you need my services. I'm in my 80s. I used to be an occupational therapist. Please hire me." And that really inspired me. And I sort of came back to my company and sort of said to the CEO, "Look, I'm gonna create this role. It's gonna be a chief elder." He thought I was crazy. He was like, "Yeah, I just gotta find the right person." And it just so happened that a few weeks later, Hazel was speaking at an event. And so the minute she got on stage, I was like, oh, that's it. She is it. She will be the elder officer. And so the senior vice president of communications and I literally cornered her after the session and said, "Would you do this role? Would you be the chief elder officer?" And she said, "Well, I have no idea what you're talking about, but sounds okay." She had just retired from politics. And so she took on this sort of Act 3. And we're gonna get into a little bit more about what she does for Revera, but just to give you an example, we have a cause around ageism. We have a site called ageismore.com where we do a lot of research. I've sent a few of these around, and I know Michael's gonna send it out, but she's quite prominent in these reports. We have a picture of her and a statement from her. She writes the foreword. And then we do media events and launches at sites that are occupancy challenged. And so what that does is it draws media and it draws people into the communities. And so we sort of get a win-win-win. We get media impressions for the company, we get people coming, leads and potential into the site. And so it works in that way. And then she also does work with residents directly. She's been on the cover recently last month of a magazine called Zoomer Magazine, so you see that in the top left. She does a lot of work for us around employee engagement. She and I are dancing in the bottom right at an executive director conference where we bring all our sites together, all the leadership sites together. So with that, as the introduction of Hurricane Hazel, we will start our fireside chat here. And Hazel, we'll start perhaps with some quick questions.
Yeah.
Do you have a morning ritual?
Yes. I get up at 5 or 5:30, and I exercise my German Shepherd out in the backyard. And then I watch the news, the early morning news, to see what's happening in Canada and across the world, because I think that's very important. And then I have a breakfast of fruit, cereal and fruit. I worked for Canadian Kellogg, which was engineers and contractors in the petrochemical field, but I do love Kellogg's cornflakes.
Awesome. Do you like aisle or window seat?
Aisle.
Aisle. Okay, very good. What is a piece of advice that someone gave you that you still talk about or live by?
Well, my mother had a great influence on my life, and she was a graduate nurse, and she said, you have to give the best to whatever you do, and the best will come back to you. That was one of her favorite statements. You have to work hard, and no matter what you are called upon to do in life, give it the very best with confidence, commitment, and hard work.
Yeah, well, you've certainly lived that. Do you have something on your bucket list?
Well, yes, I've been in many parts of the world, especially as mayor, promoting trade with Canada and encouraging Japanese and German companies to come to my city. And I have never been on a Mediterranean cruise. I'd love to see the Greek islands. So that's my next thing I'm going to do before.
Wow.
Before.
Yeah.
Before.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your role as Chief Elder Officer. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, some of the activity you've been doing, maybe starting with the work with our residents.
Yeah. Well, it's just a wonderful job that I thoroughly enjoy, because I feel that you need to bring people out of themselves. So when I visit a home, I meet with the staff, of course, when I go to the home, and talk to them and give them encouragement and thank them for the contribution they make in the lives of other people. And then I have a round table with a group of residents. The director of the home picks the people that want to be, and no staff is there. And so we start a round table discussion. And to get them people talking, I go around the table and I ask them, what did you do before you before you entered the home, and how long have you been there? And I ask them a lot of questions. And people love to talk about what they did out in the community. And you have engineers and nurses and teachers. Some of them go on for a long time, and it's tough cutting them off, but anyway, I do it diplomatically. And they love to talk about themselves, and I think that's one thing that the directors of the home should do, is give them that opportunity to often talk about what they did. And then I say to them, now I want you to tell me, what has been your experience when you left your home and came into Revera's home? What was your experience at the admittance? Because in my opinion, when you're admitted to something, it is so important that the information which is divulged to the people is clear and understandable, etc. So I asked them, what was your experience? And so they go around the table and they tell me. And now, I want you to tell me, what changes would you like to see? Now, this is not a criticism. Don't feel it's a criticism. I want to know. You can make a contribution to improve the program in this retirement residence for yourself, and think of what you could contribute to the future, the people that will be moving in because of your experience. Because when I was mayor, I worked hard in talking to the citizens that use the services that we provided. They're the best. You can do surveys, but I'll tell you, a discussion with those that use the services and get their ideas how it can be improved. And then finally they open up and start saying, and some of the things I ran across are very interesting. One said, you know, they changed the soup spoon in the soup spoon. Gracious. I said, oh, because I had never thought that there were different soup spoons. Well, you know, the one that is round and then the one that is like this. They like the round one because the food doesn't drop off of it. And I guess the cutlery in that home had been changed. And then some of them will say, you know, I made the decision to move in here. My family had nothing to do with it. And others would tell me about they moved in, and when they were in their own home and their children came to visit them, they'd have a list of things for them to do. Fix the screen in the back door, cut the grass, or trim the tree. And she said, now my family comes to see me, and it's truly a visit. So I try to get them to tell of their experiences. They want to talk about it, and you have to give them the opportunity. Now, a report is done on that, as you know, Trish, and that report goes into head office. And there's some suggestions. One lady said, I find the towels are rough. Well, I don't know what they did at the laundry, but I'm sure they put something in to soften the towels. But you got to convince them that it is not a criticism, that they have a contribution to make, you know. And secondly, everybody has talents. We all have talents. And some are hidden, some are obvious. And they like to talk about their talents. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I often ask them, well, there must be something in your life that you haven't done, and what is it? And you'd be surprised what they'll say. One gentleman said, I wanted to ride a horse. I never rode a horse. And, you know, so you bring them out, you draw the people out. I just love it. It's inspiring to me, and then they want to know about what have I accomplished during my life, and I give them a little rundown, a short rundown of it. So I just enjoy it, and I think Riviera benefits from it in some way. Some things they suggest.
Yeah.
And by the way, I do want to make this statement because I think it's important. I've visited 35 homes in Ontario. I've visited 12 to 14 in British Columbia. I have never had a complaint about staff, but I've had complaint about shortage of staff in the long-term care. Mm-hmm. That to me is quite a record for Riviera.
Yeah, that's great. And just to add on to that, so Hazel has presented to our leadership team. She has presented her findings, one of the main messages being, you know, don't do things to residents without having a conversation, without testing things on them, without notifying them, without communicating well. And I think that message bears repeating for us. I don't know about your communities, but we don't often do that well. And so really putting that at our forefront has been really helpful. She's also presented to the board of directors and told them the same thing in terms of like their role and how they govern, and to ensure that as they govern, to be thinking about the role of residents in having a say and being able to participate in the decision-making process and being able to design what we're doing and how we're doing it. So I think that it's been, especially valuable. It's very different when it comes from you. And you've had these, sort of very intimate conversations with residents directly.
I think my success as a mayor was communication with the people. I had a TV show every week in which a resident phoned and asked me any question they wanted. I gave them the answer if I knew it, and if I didn't, the staff would give them the answer the next morning. Communication is extremely important. Any changes that you make in the program of the home has got to be well communicated. For instance, in one home, as I remember, they changed the control on the doors to the apartments. They didn't explain it to all the citizens. Some knew that they could be adjusted, and so they got a complaint that the door was closing too quickly or was taking too long. So I advised the directors, please communicate everything, even after they move in. You know, we all listen carefully when we're admitted to some new program, etc. But it's nice to go back 2 to 3 weeks after they've been admitted to the residence and ask them, well, how have you found the service, and are there any questions you have? Because a person moving from their home to their new home, they're a little uptight and nervous about it. And so it's very important that you communicate with them maybe a month after they've been in the home to say, well, what are you finding? How's it going? And is there anything that is missing?
Yeah, you often say that it's hard to absorb on that sort of welcome. They're bombarded with people and information.
Well, I learned a very important lesson about communication. I was elected mayor of the city of Mississauga in 1978, and in the fall of '79, we had a derailment at an intersection of a train loaded with chemicals. And as a result, our population then was 270,000, and we had to evac 250,000 people because of the chlorine. The propane tank had ruptured the chlorine tank. And as you know, chlorine is deadly. So the people left willingly, which was great. Some of them were out for a whole week because we had to close the hole in the chlorine tank, and it was very difficult. And communication to the people, we kept them well informed. We even monitored the press to make sure that they didn't twist the information that was in the written press or the media, so TV and radio, because communication is the success of any operation, either a city, a retirement home, or a business. Communication.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think you have drawn on from your business background and also from your political insights? Like, they're very different, but as you said, communication is a common thing. Are there other things that sort of you learned along the way that you'd like to share with this group?
Yeah. Well, you know, I never felt I was deprived of an education, of being able to go to college and university, but I wasn't able to go. But I knew I had to make it on my own. And it's just amazing that I have now 4 honorary degrees from universities and colleges. Got it free of charge. But
That's the way to do it.
I think you got to remain, I guess as a depression kid, you know, today, I haven't seen any in Santa Barbara yet of young people or adults wearing jeans with holes in that they pay extra for, right? I wore jeans with hole in because they do it to make an impression. I did it because of a depression. And that's the way you start with nothing, and you either decide that you're going to make a success, that you have a purpose in life, and you must try to fulfill it. And you have to have a plan. You know, it's interesting. We built a city. This was a rural area, farms. When I went to the city hall the morning after I was elected, cows and horses were grazing at the city hall.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, and this is what's there now. It just shows you have to plan. And you have to plan a city, and you have to plan your life. There's going to be a lot of changes in planning a city, a lot of changes in planning your life, right?
Yeah, let me ask one more question and then we'll open it up just to tag on to this concept of purpose.
Yeah.
I know it's a big message. We just did a report on it actually, and I have put a couple of those out. Tell me a little bit about, even when you talk to residents, you really encourage them around purpose. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, every day, you got to try to make every day count. That, like, when you go to bed at night and you get up in the morning, it's a whole new day. If you don't have an idea of how you're going to, the things you're going to do in that day, then it's disorganized. So to plan each day is very important. Things change, no question about it, especially when you're raising a family. But the point is, if you don't have a plan, then you don't accomplish very much. And so, and I think you have to realize that you're placed on this earth. You come into this world, and you either want to make a difference in your life, and you have to plan, you have to feel that there is a purpose for life. And from there on, you get on this road, and there's many detours, and each detour that you successfully accomplish prepares you for the next one along the way. So, you know, life is a roadway, and it's up to you, as entirely up to you. Secondly, you have to listen very carefully. You have to be curious, for one thing, curious of what's going on. You have to try to be well informed about what's going on in your family and with your friends, with your community, with your country, and even internationally. Today, it's extremely, I say to young people, you know, be curious of what's happening around you, what's happening in your community. And I speak to many convocation classes, which I just enjoy. And tell them the message my mother left me, that give your best to whatever you do. And if you give your best, things will come back to you. Secondly, that people help you along the way. Mm-hmm. Be interested in people. I love to be with people. And as mayor, I was out in my community. I gave it full time. And, you know, now I just, after I retired as mayor, I still get hundreds of invitations to be out there with the people again. So it's listening to people, finding out what their thoughts are on, what their opinion is. Because I had I had no college education or university education, so I had to learn from other people. So you look to other people to give you some good ideas and some messages that are very important to you.
That's wonderful.
And people will help you along the way.
Indeed. Okay.
Everything I knew, I got to tell you, I say this, everything I knew I learned from Noah's Ark. Don't miss the boat. And it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. So be prepared and plan ahead. And when you get stressed, because we all get stressed from time, float a while. And then remember, the ark was built by amateurs, the Titanic was built by professionals.
Very good. Okay, let's open it up. Yeah, please.
First, I love
We're going to use microphones
Yeah, I'm going to give you a
just so
microphone
everyone
here.
can hear the question.
I can actually get through here today.
Yeah, could everyone please use the mic for Hazel's benefit as well?
I have one weakness. I can't hear as well as I should.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned yesterday was which of your ears is stronger. So I know that your right ear here is the stronger ear. Did you? She didn't hear me.
Just keep going.
Okay. First, though, I love your sense of humor, and I think that you'll be a leader at any age, and you earned every one of those degrees that you got, whether you bought them or not, you earned them. But my question is one that I asked you at lunch yesterday, but I think the whole group would like to hear. You've chosen not to move to senior housing yourself. You still move on your own, live on your own. Could you explain to us what it is that might attract you to live in a more communal environment?
He's just asking, what would you do?
Yeah.
You live at home. What would attract you to living into retirement living?
Well, I think the program, the facilities are important, but it's the people, the staff, that operates the home and the programs. I think that I would want to feel that retirement home has brought the community in, that they're not just alone, that the community is involved, and that the residents are taken out into the community. Mm-hmm. I would hate to live, leaving a house is one thing, to go to another building. People today move 10 or 15 times during their life from one building to another. So moving from a building to a building is really not a big event, because we do it constantly. But to make sure that the community is very much involved in the residents and that they are out in the community. Mm-hmm. And that is extremely important. And I say to the Rivera homes, connect with the recreation operation in the city or the town that you're in. They have excellent programs that they would just love to involve. They do involve the seniors associations that are out there, and they would only be too happy to involve the people that are in the residence in their programs. So don't just feel that your director of recreation in your residence is the only program. Mm-hmm. You got to get people to feel that all they've done is moved from one building to another, but they have not lost their involvement in the community. Because people love, usually, when you get to a retirement age, that you get involved in either service clubs or your respective religious organizations, etc. Don't neglect that. Make sure that you've just moved from the outside community into another community that has not lost the contact with the community in which the residence is located. That is extremely important. Mm-hmm. Secondly, one thing I encourage, find out the talents of the people that are in the retirement. One person that loves gardening, why don't you have let them look after the flowers in the garden or the landscaping around? And some people love fixing things. There's nothing wrong with maybe the person in charge of maintenance in the home would involve some of the men in repairing something. You got to try to make the difference between them being in their own home and in their new home very slight. Very, very little difference. That's the key to success.
Please. Oh, sorry, yes.
Good
Dan.
morning. So you've obviously been a major force in the ongoing development and evolution of your city, your community. I'm wondering, in this phase of your life, as you think about how you continue to, add purpose, are you playing any kind of role in either advising, counseling, the political leadership or the staff leadership that's followed you? It seems like you've got a wealth of knowledge about how to navigate things in your community. Do you play any kind of formal or informal role in advising people in current city government?
Yeah, am I still involved?
Yeah, politically. And,
Yeah.
and do you use your
Yes,
connections?
I helped to get Justin Trudeau elected Prime Minister of Canada. I did
That's true.
Yeah, I did a video that went all across Canada challenging the former Prime Minister, Mr. Harper, that I, as a senior, I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Harper. And
You might need some help here in the U.S. then, too,
Yeah.
Hazel. We could get you
I also helped to get now that's liberal, like I guess Democrats in the United States. And then the Premier of Ontario, I helped to get him elected. And he's the equivalent of Republican conservatives. I still help people with government. One thing, I ran on a platform of planning for people. So that's how we were able to grow the city from 270,000, it's now 800,000. It's the 6th largest city in Canada. Debt-free for 30 years. Never borrowed any money to build all the facilities because I made development pay its way. Secondly, right now people call me to try to cut the red tape in government. Government has got to be more efficient. I ran on the basis of planning for people and giving value for tax dollar. I never agreed that we would never increase their taxes like most people run for office, say, oh, we're going to reduce taxes. And when they get elected, they find out the budget doesn't allow it. They have to then neglect or go against their promise. I told them, I'll give you value for your tax dollar, and I will spend your money like I spend my own, which is seldom.
That's true.
We have a question back here.
Yep.
Is there any advice you have given senior management that was ignored? And how did you react to that if they did ignore it?
Any?
Have we ignored any of your advice?
Not that I know of. I've had, there's been the odd complaint come to me from the children of parents that have been in a home. I've had, I think, three, which I refer to management. And I haven't heard back from them, but knowing the management and knowing Trish, it's looked into. And often the complaints, I have found that often the complaints from the children of residents in a retirement home is not based on fact. Sorry. I often wonder if they treated their parents when they were home as well as the staff in the retirement home treated them.
I'll just add to that I'm afraid of her. So yes, I do try and listen to everything she tells me.
During your time as a mayor, right here. During your time as a mayor, the population grew 4 times, it seems like, from 200,000 to 800,000. How focused were you on maintaining the culture of your city throughout the growth? So during that time of growth, how important was it that you maintained the city's identity?
Great question.
To retain the culture of the city. Extremely important. In fact, during my term, I was able to, a group of dedicated citizens, we raised a lot of money, and I was able to turn a couple of million over to our community foundation for arts, culture, and heritage, which I think is extremely important. Very hard for heritage to get donations and culture and art. There's those 3 classes I find it's very difficult for them to raise money, so we raise money to make sure. Secondly, a great tribute was paid to my city in the Globe and Mail. I don't know, the Globe and Mail is our national newspaper in Canada. the Conservative Party had a division, so one guy left to set up his own party because he's against immigration. And the Globe and Mail editorial read that Mr. Peltier, who was the gentleman, should go out to Mississauga and see how people from all over the world have been integrated into a happy situation. And I started, when I was first elected mayor, a program called, a festival called Carasaga. I started with 5 nations, and it's been going now for some 40 years, a festival bringing all the people from different countries together in pavilions that they held and portrayed their culture, their delicious food and drinks, etc. And I think we've welded, or been able to weld the people from all over the country into a happy, into harmony in our city. I think it's extremely important to recognize. And we have every religion, needless to say, in our city, and they are working together. It's a team approach to getting people working together. In fact, we built a city based on a team approach, buying into the fact that we're building a city for people, that got to provide the services that people need for them to raise a family. And you also need, that's why I'm so happy that we have over 100 Japanese companies in our city. We have 80-some German companies, to provide jobs that people can live and work. We were a community, bedroom community when I took over as mayor. People went out in the morning, came home at night. Now we're importing more people into Mississauga than goes out in the morning. So we reversed it. Just a challenge.
We have a question here.
Yeah.
Thank you. If all the Riviera communities were a city and you were the mayor of that city, what would be, and this is not intended as criticism in terms of your admonition to the residents you meet with, but what is the single thing you would want to change based on your observation of Riviera, and assuming it applies to all of us who operate senior living communities?
Well, I think any organization can do a better job of communication. I think communication brings the world together. Communication is the success of any private organization, either the business world or the government world, is communication. And I think Riviera can do a better job of communication, just like I could have done a better job of communication. I thought I did a pretty good job, but you never do it well enough. There's always improvements to be made. I think the encouragement and instilling confidence and commitment, etc., in the staff. I think staffing today at all levels, in the private sector or the public sector, and therefore in Riviera, is preparing the staff to be committed. You can encourage a person to be committed and encourage them to realize how important their role is, how vital their role is to the lives of others, and how they can make a difference in the life of an individual. That has got to be instilled. You can't do enough of that. You really can't. Any organization.
It sounds like once the staff gets into the community, you do a great job of communicating and instilling a sense of purpose. How do you attract staff to the community in the first place? There's such competition for talent today. How do you attract even into the industry, much less a specific community?
How do I attract talent?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I really believe education is so essential to the success of any community and to any country. I had the pleasure of making donations. In fact, we donated the land to build a college in our city core. We, in the province of Ontario and in Canada, education is a responsibility of the provincial government. We don't have any responsibility for education except to make sure that when we approve development in our city, that school sites are set aside, both. And we have two educational systems in Ontario, the Catholic education and the public. That is our only responsibility in regard to education. But as a result, and I was able to convince my council to invest millions in building educational facilities for the people of Mississauga and beyond. Because it's nice to know that a student can go to a university and a college in their own city. And we had none of that when I became mayor. We didn't have a college, and we had a college, but we didn't have a university. And now we have the Mississauga campus of the University of Toronto in our city. I think education is extremely important. I went to a world conference once where a speaker said, the young people of the Western world have to realize that they better get a good education because the competition from Asia, from China and Japan will be their competitors, because those two countries spend a lot of money on education.
And I think also just, attracting people out of high school and younger to come into this industry and doing a better job of letting our local colleges and know that we're there.
In fact, companies, to get companies to invest in your city, they look at the talent that is in your city and what the educational system has been able to do. Mm-hmm. Very, very important.
So I know we're running out of time.
Yeah,
we're
unfortunately, we are running out of time.
Okay, I'll just mention, shall I mention this?
Oh, I have one message for you. I just say to you, don't fear the future of long-term care or retirement business. Help shape it, all of you. And we can all make it. It's like when I went into government, I could see changes that had to be made. I felt I had a role to play to try to shape good government. You have an opportunity to shape the future of retirement in our country.
Thank you so much. You gonna mention the book? Well, I didn't know if you were going to mention the book or...
Yeah, so Hazel has, of course, a book. She brought a couple, so if anybody wants a signed copy, this is $25 US. She has a couple soft copies for $15, and she's just going to be sitting outside.
Haven't got too many.
Yeah, she didn't bring too many, but if anybody would like one. Thank you, Hazel. You are remarkable and inspiring, and it's been
Hazel,
great that you're here.
Thank you.
You're an inspiration to us all, so thank you so much for making the trip.
Nobody will be able to change the wonderful nobody will be able to change the wonderful relationship that we've had between Canadians and Americans.